impacts the Premier League table. So Sheffield United move up the table. They were 8th at the start of the day. They moved to 6th, having taken a point, and Manchester United just moved one place up into 9th. It is time for a break, but after the break we'll get further thoughts from Pete. Hello and welcome back to Matchday Live. Well, it certainly was a game of two halves. That's the one time we can use that phrase, because Manchester United were completely different in the second half to the first. How do you reflect on the game from that perspective?
Well, credit Ole Gunnar for making changes at halftime, because the first half was a disaster. Nothing short of. Sheffield United should have been up by more goals, but he made changes. He went from a back three, took Phil Jones off, Jesse Lingard came on, and to be fair, they conceded a second. Going to take time, and we saw that today. You know, Sheffield United deserves something from the game.
Will there be any complaints about 3-3?
Being 3-2 I think yes, but in reality it shouldn't be, because I agree, Sheffield United didn't deserve to lose this game. And in fact, they deserved to win it. I thought they were much better in the first half, and second half was also like a little bit a game of half of two half, like, because there was this first bit, United came out, played well, but then Sheffield United had the middle part of that and scored, and could have scored more. Then they started to make changes as well. One of them was, of course, forced on them. But then the 7 minutes. I mean, that's what I'm clinging on to now. The 7 minutes of the future, because that as a fan, I now see that there is something there, and I think the way that this game went, you cannot expect every game to be played brilliantly. With young players, you can't expect them to be up and down in games, and even have some terrible games, but also some brilliant games. I really do think that we saw some brilliance from some of the younger players. And something that you said with swapping James over to the left seriously helped in that period as well.
Yeah, he looks more comfortable on the left. He's dangerous there. He can come inside. On the right, I don't think he gets to see it as much. Rashford came on the right and he set one of the goals up for Mason Greenwood. So some changes, some adjustments, and they were faulty in the second half.
Well, the big talking point, especially surrounding the equalising goal that McBurney scored just at the end, was it a handball?
You know, all credit to Sheffield United. They never ever gave up, and they kept piling on the pressure to score the equaliser. And I mean, we could discuss the defending here. At the end of the day, that is a goal. VAR got the decision right. I actually really do believe that this is one of the first time I'm actually agreeing with that. but when I saw it first time, I thought that's a handball.
Yeah, I did as well, yeah.
But it's not. He's done really well to get his arm out of the way.
He did really well, didn't he, to get his arm out of the way?
Yeah, that's a small... It's not touching his hand or his arm at any point. VAR made the right decision, and then, you know, when his finishes, it actually gets deflection in the way. I thought, oh, this is what we want to see.
The attacker.
Yeah, I think it should be, and we've seen incidents where they've showed it like 20 times, and they want it to be something. Here they got it right, and that's where the system works. I'm not saying anymore.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Well, should we have a look at the goal that made it 2-0, and this was in the second half?
Well, there, Wan-Bissaka, my manager's always said to me, don't play square midfield. Pereira gets caught in two minds in the turnover of possession. Harry Maguire can probably step up. He gets caught deep, and it's a mess. There's no protection in midfield. Fred and Pereira, they're just too lightweight. We said that before the game. Only two in there is too weak. But credit Sheffield United. When they turn over possession, that's a great ball in. Moussa was terrific.
And how good was Moussa throughout the whole of the game?
Brilliant. Actually, they really struggled when he went off. He went off, he had a bit of a hamstring issue, and he's running. We said, at times, the attackers for Sheffield United are a bit isolated, but because they get through so much work, and when they're good, they're brilliant. That's a terrific finish from a guy that hasn't scored a ton of goals.
What you can say is that the weaknesses that Manchester United showed today, they were exploited by Sheffield United. I thought it was really clever work from the players and the manager, and it's no coincidence they are in the table where they are. They are, I mean, obviously being challenged now with injuries, so injuries coming off. So, you know, the next couple of games, which are so-called easier games, let's see how they do there. But really impressed by them today for not giving up and coming back and getting a point.
Well, speaking of coming back, let's analyse the comeback from Manchester United's perspective. And it was Williams that scored their first goal.
Well, it didn't look like he was coming, to be fair. But this is what Brandon Williams wants to do. He wants to come forward. And this is one of the benefits. When you get high up the pitch, being a right-footed left-back, then you can shoot. In those moments, you can get a shot off. And it's actually, it's a really, really good finish from Brandon Williams, because there's a ton of bodies in there. And it's just a great finish. It really is.
The first time James is actually making that challenge on the right-hand side and actually trying to get into a crossing position. And this is what we talked about, that him on the right-hand side. It's not as effective as he is on the left-hand side. And he has this tendency to cut in and pass the ball backwards. Rather than doing that, he's so quick, and all it needs, it's a small gap. He got that little gap there, half a step in front, cross the ball, and then anything can happen, and it did. And it kind of started this 7-minute comeback.
Well,
I'm happy with that.
Well, let's have a look at that then. It was Mason Greenwood that was brought on, so great substitution from the manager. And 5 minutes later, he scores.
Yeah, but at this point, Manchester United starting to cross the ball.
Yeah, but look how many bodies they got in the box. There's so much more positive. And Rashford, to be fair, that's a Kevin De Bruyne pass. He uses the defender. Watch him just sit in that little pocket like Kevin De Bruyne does. And Mason Greenwood's a natural goal scorer. Look at him, shape it around the defender there. And Mason Greenwood's actually behind the two centre-backs. But he knows the ball's coming in there. That's a great goal. It really is. And Mason Greenwood is a natural finisher. He's a really good goal scorer.
And we're looking at, as you mentioned, really young players. They have such bright futures. And I guess that is the positive that the Manchester United fans can hold on to.
But see, we saw James on the first goal, taking on the left fullback, getting across it. He's not done anything like that in the whole game. And then on the third goal, he's swapped over to the left-hand side, and he's got this confidence, which young players, they need to be reminded of how good they really are. And he's got the confidence to do that. And I think this third goal is magnificent. That's the one that Rashford is scoring. What James is doing, the little 1-2, is it with Lingard?
Martial.
It was Martial, yeah.
Well, let's have a look at.
But that's really good there. Just a link-up play there. But look at little 1-2. This is really good. And the young guys, they stepped up when Manchester United needed it. It's a nice, easy, composed finish from Rashford. But going back to your point, the young guys are performing. It's the more senior players at Manchester United, which they can't really rely on right now, which they've had in the past. Man United's always had great young players. And this is when they're good, when they're positive. We didn't see this in the first half. 1-2s, forward running, forward passing. When they do this, these guys are really good. We didn't see it in the first half, and the senior players didn't help. But that goal really sums up the talent of these three guys. They can be anything in the game, but they need help. And when the team struggles like in the first half, you need senior players. And they didn't have anybody to lean on the first half. Midfielder, Fred and Pereira, that's not good enough at this level, sadly.
Fred definitely needs, I like him, but he needs somebody really strong, somebody who can control him. He looks good with
Scott, doesn't he?
Yeah, and this is, again, you want to sort of kind of talk about where Man United are in their sort of this evolving period. Just the fact that Scott McTominay is not there is a problem. That wasn't a problem 4 months ago, or 5 months ago. But what we're talking about this now as a problem. He is, people forget this, he's a young player that needs to play a lot of games, but he also needs to be taken out. He needs to be nurtured a little bit. And when you play so many games, it so often happens that you get injured, and he comes back from international duty with an injury because you're under pressure as a player.
Yeah.
He needs to, and the master of that was Alex Ferguson. He was brilliant at giving players a run in the team. He took them out, rested them, and they then did some different kind of training that you probably can't do when you. And Ola hasn't got the luxury of that because he simply hasn't got enough quality players. So he needs to play all the young players all the time, really.
Well, we've heard the thoughts of Peter and Owen, and after the break, we'll get...
Crazy game.
Тренер считает, что этому игроку больше не место на поле. Болельщики подходят с ним солидарно. Да, если бы он заранее знал, что так плохо сегодня сыграет, думаю, предпочел бы на поле не выходить. Но жизнь продолжается, впереди еще много матчей. Отличный пас прошел. Получает он мяч.
О, найс шот, Криштиану.
Ну вот теперь полегче. Да, то спасение было невероятным. Сейчас, конечно, удар был попроще. Хорошая игра на перехвате, и вот мяч уже в распоряжении другой команды. Мяч на самом чисто. Ну как, кто не успеет первым? Здорово сейчас может контратака пройти.
Where is my defenders are not on the side? I need to change the tactic because I can play like this. I'm not have defenders. I have just goals, goals, goals in my squad.
Очень хорошо умеет пас играть. Хорошо.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Вильям Карваль. Криштиану среагировал.
Oh my god.
Залез в пресс бокса. Фернандо. И нарушение правил со стороны игрока Барселоны. Мальчишник Антон Гризман наказан. Жуан Канцело. Вильям